power of negative thinking. You didn't know there was power in negative thinking? Again, there is power in negative thinking. I'm going to tell you exactly what that power is, and I'm going to tell you how to use it. If you don't mind me over delivering here and telling you how to put all of this stuff to good use, that's exactly what's going to happen here today. Now, Norman Vincent Peale is famous for writing a book that you should be familiar with. If you haven't read it, you should read it. It is called The Power of Positive Thinking. And even though I'm about to go against the power of positive thinking today and tell you the power of negative thinking, it's not that positive thinking is not a good thing. All right. Positive thinking is a good thing as well as negative thinking. There is power in both of these. And remember, folks, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing things. Wisdom is knowing when and how to use certain things at certain times. So what I'm telling you here today is something that you can use at times, and there are things that you may not want to use at other times. And here I'm going to tell you the power and the times when negative thinking actually matters. So positive thinking always is and always will be a great thing. Okay, today we're going to talk about the value of thinking negatively in a strategic way. So you're not just thinking negative just to think negative. This is not about just, again, letting negative thinking run rampant in your mind or taking control of your thought processes, because that's a bad thing that you should avoid. So we talked about positive negative thinking and the negative preparation in episode number 2704, or the power of negative thinking / negative preparation, episode 2704. You should cross-reference that one against this one. Today I'm going to talk about more of the negative thinking that happens in your own head as opposed to negative preparation, as I did back in that episode. So let's get right to it. Point number one. Topic, once again, is the power of negative thinking. Point number one, negative energy is still negative energy, and it can be transmuted into action that produces positive results. Negative thinking is still energy. Okay, remember what energy is: 85% of the job in life, which means you can take that energy of negative thinking and transmute that energy into action that produces outcomes that you actually want. So it doesn't matter where energy comes from as long as you have it. Remember, the law of conservation of energy says that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It merely changes forms and it transfers from one object to another. But you can't just make energy. You just need to get it. So negative thinking is a form of energy. Again, regardless of why you're thinking negative, there's energy in that. You just have to learn to identify it, harness it, and use it instead of letting it harness and use you, which is what most people do with negative energy. So negative energy, as I said, still energy. As long as you know how to change the form of that energy into action that leads to a positive outcome. So don't just take negative energy and turn it into action that destroys things, or at least not destroys you or anything destructive that would hurt your chances of success. You want to transmute that energy into something that you can use that produces a positive result. That's a good thing. So for males, for example, we tend to be good at taking negative energy in the form of things like anger, stress, fear, disappointment, or otherwise. And when we are at our most resourceful states, we can transmute that energy into actions that we need to take that lead to good outcomes for us. So a man could be angry about the fact that his sports team lost the game. I mean, the team he plays on, not the team he watches. They lost the game this week. So he goes to the gym and works on his game. He takes the anger and the frustration of that loss, transmutes it into energy that activates him to go to the gym and work on his game, so that the next game they play, he performs better, and maybe his teammates do the same thing, and now the whole team has risen up levels, and now they play a lot better the next game and they win. All right, that's a form of transmuting energy. And again, men are good with taking these negative energies like anger, stress, fear, disappointment, frustration, and transmuting them into things that we can actually use in a positive way. And it's not that we need to do this all the time and all day. And actually we could, depending on what the energy is and how we learn to manage it. But if the energy tends to overrun you or burn you out, then that means you're not harnessing the energy in a proper way. So you could be angry and use it as a long-term burn, a long-term slow burn to move you to do something. You could get angry about something that happened last year, but you don't get until a year from now or 6 months from now to redeem that situation. So you could take that anger and kind of spread it out over the course of 6 months or over the course of a year to continue doing whatever you need to do to prepare yourself for your next opportunity to use that anger. So it doesn't have to be this short burst thing. It's not like someone says something to you that you don't like at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're ready to beat them up. Maybe it can turn over that quickly, but often you need to take time in using that energy and spreading it out over an extended period before you get to do the positive action is going to, or do the action period is going to lead to the positive result that you want. So again, you can probably think of situations where people have done this. I'll give you one. You take someone like Michael Jordan, who I've used as an example many times on the show. When he came back from his first retirement, he was playing baseball, and he played a shortened amount of games, maybe I think it was about 17 games in the 1995 NBA season that ended in 1995, and his team got eliminated in the playoffs. Michael was still pretty damn good, but he wasn't quite peak Michael Jordan. He was maybe 95% of Michael Jordan. He spent the following offseason getting himself in a much better shape, basketball shape again. Chicago Bulls reloaded and added some quality players to their team. And then the next 3 seasons, Michael Jordan and his team won the championship. I will tell you that, and Michael Jordan has said this himself, that he took the anger, the frustration, the disappointment, all of those negative energies that came with losing, and then people subsequently saying, well, Michael Jordan is not the guy anymore. He's not the best player anymore. The game is passing by. His time in the NBA is over, or his time as the best player is over. People saying that he took all the negative energy that came from hearing that stuff. Well, he decided to transmute that into negative energy. They were just statements, but he turned it into negative energy, used that to train himself for a whole offseason to get in shape, and then used that energy to go have a great next season, broke the NBA record for wins in the regular season, and then won the championship a year after these people were saying that he was done. So it was a whole year that he had to wait before he had a chance to vindicate himself based on what had happened there. So transmuting any energy that you get into actions that will help you achieve what you want to achieve. Now, one thing that's necessary here is you need to know what you want to achieve. You need to transmute any energy into another energy that will lead to actions that lead to an outcome. You need to be clear on the outcome. What am I trying to do here? And again, you may not need to do this all the time and all day. That may lead to some type of heart disease. But we should get good at being able to use it when you need to. So being able to flick the switch and use this when you want to. Every man listening to me can recall a time in your life when, again, anger or disappointment or frustration about a situation came to you. You utilized that energy. You turned it into activity. And then something that you wanted ended up happening because of the activity you took. Now, some women, you may have these experiences as well, but being that I'm speaking from a man's perspective, and also I find that being I'm speaking from a man's perspective, I also know that these tend to be more consistent in men. Men, we tend to be able to take negative energy and transmute it into action, whereas women, they can use other negative energies as well, such as disappointment, stress, anxiety, fear, or otherwise to achieve similar results. The whole point here is that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Okay? It just transfers from one object to another and it changes forms. Your job is to facilitate the transfer. All right, the peaceful transfer of energy, all right, from one place to another. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the power of negative thinking. Number 2, consider where things could possibly fail or not go according to plan, and this is a good strategy. Just taking the time to think about where could this thing fail, not work, not go the way I wanted it to go. You may consider that thinking negatively about a situation when your hope is that everything works out perfectly. That doesn't mean you should ignore the fact that things probably won't work out perfectly simply because human beings are involved, and I've yet to meet a perfect human being. I don't think you've met one either. Therefore, any plan made by a human must be, by definition, an imperfect plan, which means things are not going to go the way you expect them to go, which means you should probably consider, what will I do if and when this part of the plan does not work? And the more of that you have planned out and thought about, what will I do if this doesn't work, the better you'll be prepared when something doesn't work. Maybe 80% of your plan goes exactly as you thought, but 20% does not. But since you've considered every permutation of everything not possibly working, the 2 things that don't work, the 20% rather that doesn't work, you've already thought about it, and now you already have ideas and plan B, C, D, and E for what to do if plan A doesn't happen. This is the reason why I tell you that plans are generally useless, but planning is priceless. Why? Because planning is the time that you spend thinking about, what will I do if it doesn't go the way I thought it was going to go. That's part of your planning. Part of your planning should always include, what will I do if things don't go the way I think they're going to go. So as they say, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So just in case our plans don't go perfectly, we can still achieve our outcomes. So what if someone you're working with doesn't show up, or they're otherwise proven incapable of doing the job? What are you going to do? Can you still get the job done? What if your car doesn't have a full tank of gas? What if you are selling food and people don't like the food? What if your kid wakes up sick tomorrow morning? Of course, we don't want these things to happen, but we should be ready just in case they do. Again, plans are useless, planning is priceless. Remember what the hallmark of a professional is, ladies and gentlemen. It is preparation. Key way to know that you're dealing with a professional is that they are prepared. All right, preparation. The professional is already prepared for anything that could possibly occur. So no matter what occurs, the professional knows what to do, and they already mentally know ahead of time that they will be able to deal with it, even if they don't know what the occurrence will be. Something might happen here. I'm ready for it no matter what it is. All right, that's the professional's frame. Sometimes this means making tangible plans for certain contingencies. For some people, it's just a mentality and a way of thinking and a way of being. For others, it's a combination of both. Also, remember, especially when you're in a competitive situation, you cannot always predict what the other side is going to do. Anytime you're dealing with humans, you can't predict what's going to happen. Sometimes dealing with machines, you can't always predict what's going to happen, depending on how many machines are involved. When you're working with people other than yourself, you should plan accordingly, knowing that sometimes people will do unpredictable things or unexpected things or completely go against the grain of what you plan for them to do or what you want them to do or what you are hoping for them to do or even what they told you they were going to do. They might do the exact opposite of that. You need to be ready for that because, again, as a professional, you consider every possible angle. That's what a professional does. What makes someone an expert of what they do is that they've seen everything that could possibly be seen in a particular space and they know how to handle it. And what makes someone, and usually experts and professionals, usually every expert is a professional. Not every professional is an expert, but every expert is a professional. And one of the hallmarks of being a professional is that you are always prepared. Meaning, as an expert and a professional, you've seen everything already. So you've already mentally considered what would happen if this occurs. And you're already ready to handle it because you probably handled it in the past. You probably had the same unexpected thing happen to you in the past. So you expect the unexpected, and then whatever it is, you know how to handle it because you've seen that before. Just because you've seen something before doesn't mean it can't still be unexpected. Right? I've seen somebody throw a punch at me before in the boxing ring. That doesn't mean it wouldn't be unexpected if I'm taking a walk with my son in the evening and someone throws a punch at me. That's a different situation. I've experienced someone throwing a punch, but not in that circumstance. So the more that you've seen a certain thing, the better you'll be able to respond to it. So even though I may not have seen it coming when someone does it in the street, I know how to respond because I know how to respond. I've trained myself to respond to something like that because I've done it in a different setting. The point being, I've seen it. That's the whole point. Point of being an expert and being a professional is that you have seen, at least in your own mind, everything that could happen, so you're ready to respond with your own abilities to whatever does happen. Okay, so for some of you, again, this is a way of thinking, way of being. For others, it's tangible plans that you need to make for certain contingencies, and for some of you, it's both of those. Also, remember when you're in a situation that involves other humans, you do not know what another person is going to do, and do not rest on your laurels or get complacent, assuming that another person is going to deliver in a certain way, unless you have already built a certain amount of trust with this person. And they build some cachet with you to where you already know what they're going to do. You also know what they're not going to do. But if you're not that sure on them, then be prepared for them maybe not doing what you thought they were going to do. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the power of negative thinking. Number 3, some people are more wired to respond to negative energy than they are wired to respond to positive energy. This is just the thing. Any person in a specific area of life may respond to better to negative thinking than to positive thinking. They may respond to positive in 99 areas of life, but in one area they like the negative energy that simply just works for them. As an athlete, for example, I always liked playing games on the road in other people's venues or at other people's parks or at other people's gyms. Why? Because I like the energy, the negative energy that will come from the crowd, whether they're ridiculing, whether they're actively cheering against me and my team, or they were just completely indifferent and they were more focused on cheering for the home team than paying any attention to the road team. I like playing the road games better. And I found in my experience also my teammates, because I played a team sport, my teammates tended to be more focused when we played road games than home games. Home games, there's a lot of complacency because people knew they were in a comfortable environment and there's a bunch of people cheering for them. But on a road game, you're not in a comfortable environment. Nobody's cheering for you. How do you perform then? I tended to like those better. Even when I watch basketball games of players who I like from back in the days, like Michael Jordan or LeBron James playing today or Kobe Bryant, something like that. I like watching them play games on the road more than I like watching them play games at home. Why? Because the focus tends to be sharper on the road. It's more fun for me as a spectator to see a player dominate the home team as a road player and silencing the crowd than it is to see a player dominating the road team as a home player and the crowd going crazy every time they score, which is cool too. But I'd rather see a player do that on the road because it's harder for everybody. Most players tend to play worse outside of the friendly confines of their comfortable environment than when they go into an uncomfortable environment. I always liked the uncomfortable environments, or again, quote unquote, uncomfortable, simply because it was a change of pace and it was different than what everybody was used to. And you got to find out, all right, who was a real pro, who was really mentally tough when you go into a road game environment. And I talk about road games. I'll give you the episode where I talk about road games. This is one of my favorite topics. It was episode number 1068, road games, and also episode 362, how to win the road games of life. So 1068, 362, where we talked about that. So in playing sports, for example, there were some players who I played with who responded really well when a coach would yell at them and berate them in front of everybody. So they responded really well to negative reinforcements in front of everybody and done publicly. There are other players, though, if the coach did that same thing, that player would shrink and become a shell of themselves if the coach tried to call them out publicly or basically trash them, bash them publicly. Now, some of those same people, on the other hand, may do really well with being talked to negatively in another aspect of life, just not this one. So it didn't work so well in one area, but it does work well in another area. And you can flip this around the other way. All right, some of you listen to this, you can motivate and move yourself to action with negative thinking and negative talk about yourself. Like, man, I'm not doing shit. This is garbage. I'm not performing at all. And that motivates you to action. Whereas others of you, if you talk to yourself like that, you would actually do worse and you would do less and not do anything because you can't accept that kind of talk coming from another person. You can't even accept it coming from yourself. And the whole point here is you need to know yourself. Your job is to know yourself, what works best for you. And then when you know what works best for you and what your best trigger points are, the better you can trigger yourself to the necessary action and position yourself to where that action can actually be activated most easily and most consistently and most efficiently. And the more often you do that, usually that means the more action you're taking, with the right energy, the more things you get done. And that gives you space to accomplish more and space to live more life. That's the reason why we're talking about all this. How do you get more life squeezed out of your life while you are still here and you still have the opportunity to do so? The way that you do that is to know what triggers you to your best actions and your most effective energies, and then start doing it on purpose. As simple as that. And the more often you can do this on purpose and move yourself to action on call, the more stuff you get done every day, week, month, year, and the more stuff you will have achieved in your life so that you literally get to live more life before your time expires. All that said, let's recap today's class, which is the power of negative thinking. Again, Norman Vincent Peale wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. You should read that book. Today we're flipping it around. Number one, negative energy is still energy, and it can be transmuted into action that produces positive results. Remember, energy is 85% of the job, so any energy you come across, you should find a way to use it. Number two, considering where things could possibly fail or not go according to plan is good strategy. A professional is always prepared ahead of time for anything that occurs, even if they don't know what is going to occur. They're prepared to deal with whatever it happens to be. Number three, some people are more wired to respond to negative words or thoughts than they are wired to respond to positive material. So you need to know yourself, what works for you and in what aspects of life. There are some aspects where you want positive. There's some aspects where you work better with negative, maybe coming from you or coming from someone else. Your job is to know yourself. The better you know yourself, the better you can trigger yourself, move yourself to action on call. And the more you move yourself to action on call, the more stuff you do, the more life you get to live. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com to have me as your direct coach, get access to all of our trainings, all our courses, all our programs. And you get started on hitting your goals as quickly as possible in as short a time as possible and as efficiently and effectively as possible with me helping you all along the way. That's WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all